about, I'd say about 7 or 8 feet from the vehicle, so this is the way it presents itself. I've already taken all the still photos with an emphasis on whatever blemishes I was able to see as far as the obvious ones, and then the panel gaps as well, which I'll analyze once I'm back at the office. But let's go ahead and move on in now. And then looking at the left front bumper area, it looks pretty clean and it's pretty secured. The lens is decent shape. Don't see too much cloudiness, just very little, but definitely nothing too obvious. Chrome work looks decent, just some little scuffs, and the fog lamp looks to be in decent shape as well. Let's just do a quick side view while I'm here. Okay. What I'm doing here is I'm looking for any dings, dents, or any waviness in the side panels. Sometimes you can't see them when you look straight on, but if you catch them at an angle, that's where you can pick them up, and then you play with the reflections as well. So it does have some dings, nothing too obvious. Again, the only reason I'm seeing them now is because I'm kind of just manipulating the angles a little bit. So less than perfect, but not flawless. Okay, looking at the windshield, there's no chips or cracks or signs of delamination that I'm able to see now. I got a still photo of the public ID already. That I'll cross-reference with the chassis number and the decal and the door jamb. That all should be there. Just pointing out here on the trim, you can see where it's just been chewed up a little bit. So taking it to that next level is something that you may want to consider. Looking at the hood, we can see where it's pretty thin there in the center. But let's get some paint meter readings and we'll give you an accurate reading here. So we got 1, 1.5, 1.5, 2, 2.5. This meter reads in the thousandths of an inch, right? So if we get a specific reading of 19.7, that's an indication of body filler, right? So so far the panels look straight. Just it'll just need to get repainted if that's the route you decide to go. Looking at the left fender, 4.5, 5, 4.5. Before moving on, I always like to do the left, the wheel wells, I should say. And what I'm checking for is any signs of impact damage. Nobody ever checks here, but I do. All right. Now we're looking at the strut assembly there, and then the back side of the wheel well. So it looks like it's all intact. Then I take this opportunity to look at the tires. It's a 235/45/17 Lionheart. Okay. The rims have some curb rash, so they are chewed up a little bit. I can't get the production date on these ones. There is a DOT markings, but nothing clear like when you see on some of the major brands. The brake pad, I'll try to get it, but no promises there. And I'll have to review that myself. Again, just another shot of the side panels. Right. Looking at the outside mirror. Usually when I'm down here, just kind of move up on this. You can see where the trim is just slightly dropped a little bit. So it looks like it took a little bit of a hit. Just you can see some scrape marks right there. But the assembly itself is pretty solid. Looking at the glass on the side panels there, looks pretty decent. Don't see any scratches. I don't see any chips or delamination. It's got post-factory paint film on there. So 4.5, and I'll take a look at that to see if it's any bubbling or peeling. 4. So far we're getting rock solid numbers. Looks pretty good. I'm not seeing any signs of any being worked, is what I mean by that. Okay. Some scuffs, and then the ding was here somewhere, and then some more scuff marks. All right. Looking at the roof line, I always like to see how the glass is, if it's sitting flush with the panel. It looks pretty straightforward. I'll be checking the operation of that a little later on. And moving on. Oops, shut off on me. 1 second here. 4, 4.5. Great reading so far. 4, 4, and 4. Here, looking at the left rear wheel area. All right, and then tires here. This one here is it's another off-brand Externa, whatever it is, right? Again, DOT on there. Typically on the big brands, I can see a date on there, so I can't verify that. This is a 235/45/17s. Rims have the curb rash on there, a little chewed up. And then I'll try to get that brake pad if I can. I think I'm in there. I'll have to review it. Okay. All right, now taking a look at the back side of the vehicle. Again, just a side view. And looking at the rear bumper, chrome looks good. The lenses, nice. Don't see any cracks in them. Okay, I'll be checking. Looks like it's got the parking distance control, so I'll need to check the operation there. And here's the backside view of the roof line and the glass. I always like to look at the defroster lines, right? Make sure they haven't been cut or damaged in any way, because if so, then the system just doesn't work. Windshield wiper, I'll be checking the operation of that as well to see how well it works. So far, nothing major really jumping out at me here so far. Again, right side of the lens looks decent. Right, glass, good shape. And then another side view of the panels. Okay. Here, let's get some readings. 4.5, 4. Here, there's some really long scratches. It starts from here. It works its way all the way to the door handle. And then some more down below there. Some little chips. Wheel well area. Okay. And we have the rims. They have the curb rash. Let's see if we can get a shot of that brake pad. And these tires are the Lionhearts. Moving on, let's get some readings. 3.5, 4, 3.5. Left front door, 4, 4.5, 4, and 4. Outside mirror, just some minor little scuff marks there. It's nicely secured. And then looking at the left fender, 5.5, 4.5, 5, 4.5. Just I think a little scratch here on that right fender. Take a quick look at the glass on this side. Again, don't see any issues really jumping out at me. Here's a view of the dash. I always like to take this opportunity to get this shot, and we're just checking for cracks, cosmetic blemishes, or anything that may need your attention, or at least know about before moving forward with the car. Okay. And lastly, the left front wheel well. Okay, left front wheel well. The tires are 235, 45, 17 Lionhearts as well. Rims has their fair share of curb rash on this side as well. And let's see if I can get a shot here. I don't know if that one's going to come out, but hopefully we got the other ones. Give you one last push out view before I move on. I'm about to do the startup test. So here, when we first turn on the ignition, what I'm going to do is pay attention to see how the starter kicks over. If there's any type of sluggishness that seems abnormal, and I'll point that out if something doesn't seem right. Also, we want to see all the lights illuminate when I turn the ignition on initially. That's an indication that all the fault lights are working, and we want to make sure nothing's been tampered with. As in like popped or turned off, so that way we wouldn't see it. I'm going to still do a full chassis scan anyway, so even if they did do that, I'd still pick up on it while doing the OBD diagnostics. So we're going to go ahead and crank it over for the first time here, and then after we finish the cabin area, I'm going to walk towards the rear of the vehicle. We're going to take a look at the exhaust, make sure there's no smoke coming out, because we don't want to see black, blue, gray, white. We don't want to see any of that, because that all means something. Condensation is okay, but that should clear up, after a minute or two of running. So here we go. First turn of the ignition, and stepping on the brakes, and I see the airbag light coming on. Okay, and that's the only light that I'm seeing coming on. So hold on one second here. Try that again. Stick it in. Okay, ignition on. Odometer reading is 133,909. Okay, and here we go. All right, so final turn of the ignition there. Check engine light, ABS, airbag light, and brake light, and all that good stuff is coming on. And turn on the ignition. Okay, so it cranked over, it was a decent crank over. Battery was, I thought it was just a touch sluggish, but I'm going to run a full charging battery and electrical diagnostic as far as when I do the battery assessment here. Okay, idle shot up to 1200, but now as it's resting here a little bit, it's dropping below the 1000, which is a good sign. We're going to make our way back towards the vehicle, and we'll start looking at stuff. Okay, making my way back here. I'm looking at the exhaust right now, and I'm not seeing anything, right? So it looks pretty clean, which is a great sign, especially had we seen the black or the blue smoke. Blue smoke means excess engine wear internally. The white smoke can be blown head gasket, and then the black smoke that a lot of people are common with would be like running rich for some reason. Okay, so moving towards the engine bay area. One of the first things I do is I look at the underside of the hood, and I'm checking for insulation, make sure there's no rodent damage there. For whatever reason, they like to chew on that. So it looks pretty clean. I take a look at the bolts right there, bolts there, looking for chipping, and I gotta review those pictures again. Here are the engine bay. It's just a little dusty, right? That's an indication of deferred maintenance, but I like to see it nice and clean, but I mean, no, whatever, right? Just moving on the sides, looks pretty straightforward. I kind of shook everything. Everything's intact, so that's nice. Brake fluid looks like it's a little dark. I've already checked the transmission fluid down there. Didn't look the best, so that's something that you may want to have serviced, and the engine oil as well. All right, engine belt, I got some shots of that. I didn't see any signs of cracking, so they look pretty good. Here's the decal for the belt change, and then power steering. I won't even open that, but power steering fluid was low as well. The coolant, I should be able to open it up. I didn't see any signs of cross contamination. Kind of nice, and I'm not seeing any bubbling. So far so good. And I always put some weight into these to the struts area, just to make sure everything seems firm and nothing is like moving from side to side. And then here is the chassis frame number, so we have that on file too. I also look at the back side of it, everything, as much as I can with the light, because I mentioned earlier about rodent damage. They like to nest in the engine area, and they like to chew at stuff, chew at wiring, chew at the hoses. Oh, speaking of hoses, top side not too bad, right? Seems like it still has some life in it. The bottom one I won't be able to get to, but that's the engine bay area. And moving on. I've been driving for a couple of miles already, so let's go through some of the testing, even though I've already done it already. So here we're going in drive about 30 miles an hour, 40, and right now that I have the opportunity to just drive a little faster, so this is about 60, right? No, I'm gonna let go of the steering wheel here in a second, and there's very little shimmy, if not none, coming from the steering wheel. When I start applying the brakes, it stops pretty straight. Had just a slight veer, but nothing where I'd say it's mechanical. I've already tested the cruise control, that works. And let's do some of the shifting here. Okay, so let's do some manual shifting. Okay, so. And the transmission is shifting seamlessly, so it's smooth, no hesitations, no slipping, so it shifted nicely. I've got to take it easy on the speed limit actually, but I did want to get that across to you on video. I did notice that the left side brake light is out, and there is an indicator to check the stop brake light, so that's on, right? Windshield wipers worked, front and rear, just no washer jet. That's the dealership right there, so I'll do another flyby. So yeah, so the washer jets aren't working. The windows, I checked all that works. Outside mirror, no issues there. Radio worked. AC blows nice and cold. But one thing I did notice when I when I turned on the heater, I let it run for about 10, 15, 20 minutes actually, just to make sure it heats up properly. I noticed that the heat comes out on the right side, but not on the left side. So it wasn't as hot on the right side versus the left. And I think I remember seeing a fault when I ran the diagnostics for the vehicle. And let me just turn around here. I like to go over the bumps or uneven surface pretty quick. And what I'm checking for there is any rattle noises. Does anything feel loose, or it feels like it's come off? And so as you can see, I hit it pretty hard. Well, I shouldn't say hit it. I was aggressive when I went up the driveway, and no clunks. It was pretty solid. Idle is really nice on this. It really is a smooth driving car. Having 133,000 miles on it, I'd say it's above average mechanically. What else? Parking brake works. I checked that. Checked all the controls here. Radio, I think I mentioned that works. And yeah, I'm going to go ahead and just head back to the dealership now and return it.